Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome back to Next in Gaming, the show where we interview opinion leaders in the gaming space. Everyone from your favorite influencer to developers, esports managers, and more. And remember, this show is hosted by Restream using Restream Studio. From interviewing live guests to running your very own show, Restream makes it easier than ever, which you'll see plenty of during today's show. My guest today is Khang Thai, the Senior Global Esports Lead at Razer Inc. Khang has extensive experience in marketing consumer tech products and is well versed in developing compelling content that drives brand awareness and conversation. Today, we'll be talking about his role in the esports industry and where he sees things going from here. As always, we invite everybody who's watching us here live to ask their questions in the live chat, and we'll get to them as soon as we can throughout the show. So, without further ado, hello, Khang Thai.
Hey, everyone. Hey, thanks for having me on the show. Super excited to be here.
Super excited to have you. Today's going to be a great show. We're going to talk about a bunch of esports related stuff, and I'm super excited to get into it. But before I do that, I'd love to give you kind of the chance. I gave you like a little bit of an intro at the beginning, but I'd love to give you a chance to kind of talk directly to our audience and give your elevator pitch of what you do and who you are.
Sure. Again, my name is Khang. I've been at Razer for a few years now. I've been very, very lucky to be at this company. I've been involved in a lot of product marketing, helped to launch the Razer Phone 1, the Razer Phone 2 as part of the mobile business unit. But I joined the global esports team a couple of years ago, and it's just been a blast. Have had a lot of fun, um, you know, creating marketing campaigns, sponsoring teams, um, getting involved in tournaments. So it's so much fun. Really lucky.
Awesome. And speaking of which, we can kind of just drive, I feel like almost right off that question. I asked kind of like introduce yourself and you mentioned, working with the Razer phones and stuff. So I saw on your LinkedIn that you kind of started as a community manager with Razer and kind of worked your way all the way to senior global esports lead, which is awesome. So I kind of want to know, like, what was the driving force? Yeah, like how does that happen? Why esports and how was that journey almost?
It has been quite a journey. As I mentioned before, like I was really involved in mobile products at the beginning. I had joined as part of another team, and I had dabbled in esports a little bit. I had sponsored a mobile esports and gaming team, and then I guess through that experience, I was sort of poached, I guess you could say, to join the global esports team. And really, it's you know I really call it luck. Yeah, of course, like people say, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it for sure, but I couldn't have done it without a lot of support from my teammates, um, people on the community team have really helped me a lot, um, and I think I've learned a lot from my mentors, and of course Min himself. Like he's given me a lot of these opportunities, and I've just tried to make the most of them.
That's awesome. I mean, honestly, it's almost like a meteoric rise to go from the community manager to senior esports. I myself started as like customer support at Restream, and then worked my way to community manager, and now here I am interviewing you live on the air. So it's interesting, especially with tech companies, how you can propel yourself forward like that.
Yeah.
So you've worked with a lot of esports professionals, especially the teams that Razer has and that kind of thing. So I'm kind of wondering, what advice would you give to a brand new gaming streamer who's looking to break into the industry, maybe become competitive esports player, or even to join the Razer team, for example?
Yeah, it's a it's a great question. I get that question a lot, and especially on Twitter and stuff. Like, hey, sponsor me, sponsor me. But really, I think for someone who's looking to get started and break out, it's just like, just do it. Just
Hmm.
stream, just be yourself. Get a nice like setup, good quality products. Like Razer, we've got the Viper AK mouse, Huntsman keyboards, Keo, webcam, Siren uh, Elite, and Siren products. That's the family of products for broadcasting. And so you just need to get started. Start somewhere and like model yourself after good content creators and just learn and from the people that you admire. So from the content and streaming side of things, I think that's where you start.
Hmm.
But from an esports side of things, it's just get yourself involved in tournaments, just play, um, and start to establish really good habits about being dedicated to your craft. I think a lot of pros, they play, I think, or they train like 10 hours a day,
Wow.
and they go through drills just like any other traditional sports athlete. They dedicate a lot of time to improving every aspect of their game. So people who think that they are good and they can just get into an esports team, it's really not that easy.
It's kind of like, get out there, make a name for yourself, prove who you are. And
Yep.
then would you almost say that it would be easier to, make a presence for yourself online and then let those teams kind of draft you almost and like get in your chat, like, hey, man, I've been watching you play for a while.
Yeah, I think there's some part of that that's true. I think being involved in tournaments is probably the better way to go. I mean, there's going to be a little bit of both because I think a lot of esports pros, they're very dedicated to just being the best at their game, right?
Hmm.
But I think you almost you can build a brand that way, but also if you become sort of like a hybrid streamer or a content creator, that helps to build your brand like really like very very quickly, I think. So if you're I would suggest for someone who's starting out to just put yourself out there and make a name for yourself any way you can, and then when we see or when other teams like scout, they'll look for you. They'll look for the best players in whatever game they're looking for. So yeah, you just got to do it
It makes a
and
lot of
be
sense.
and don't be afraid to like make mistakes too. I mean, there's guaranteed mistakes that will happen, and you just got to roll with the punches.
Hmm. And I think that makes you a stronger esports player as is. Like, if
Yeah.
you get flustered by losing, one round out of three, then that's going to tank you the rest of your game, right?
Right. Right.
So, speaking of which, that kind of like tails perfectly into the next question that I had. How would you describe the experience of attending these tournaments? Like, whether I'm, just getting started in the industry, or I'm a professional or maybe there's, different aspects. If I'm a professional, maybe the tournament feels different than if I was a novice. So, I'd love to get your opinion on how those tournaments run, and what's it like for the players that attend them.
Yeah, it's. I don't think it's unlike any traditional sports athlete. Coming in and playing the first game in like the NBA or the NHL, you got those butterflies, right?
Hmm.
And so a lot of, um, I think a lot of the game is mental and building that fortitude when you enter a tournament is key, and that's why like consistent practice and joining multiple tournaments gets you sort of in that comfort zone. Um, at first, like I this this question I thought was really interesting because I saw it from the other side of things for the fan themselves, right? And I think more fans and followers of her team should watch these
Yeah.
tournaments because it's and attend them if they can, and like obviously in a non-COVID situation,
Mhm.
because watching it online is just not the same as actually being there and experiencing it. It's like going to if you ever been to a hockey game, like watching it on TV is not it's definitely not the same. If you're there, it's more or it's less about the experience, but more
Mhm.
like the when you're sitting next to another passionate fan, it's like you feel the electricity in the air.
Mhm.
That's what it's like in a real arena. That's if you ever go to, I went to the PUBG World Championships in Oakland, I think like last year or the year
Yeah.
before. It was amazing. It was just amazing. Just the production quality, the sounds, everyone was just so amped. You just can't get that like from watching through a screen. And I hope that, um, when this COVID stuff is all over, that people will attend LAN events again and really have an excellent time because I really miss it.
I almost feel like, compared to traditional sports, going to watch a hockey game, as you said, versus being actually there for a live esports tournament, I feel like on the tech side of things and the production side of things, there's almost more you can do at an esports event to really get the fan base involved in the game, from
Mhm.
seeing like perspective angles, seeing what the team is saying to each other. I
Yeah,
just feel like the production value can be scaled up so much stronger than
yeah.
it could for like a hockey game or soccer.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And I think when the analogy would be like in football when they started to have like drone shots,
Oh yeah,
like
yeah,
I thought that was amazing. Getting that closer perspective of like the players and everything, I thought that was just amazing technology, amazing use of technology, and like I agree with you that when you're at a LAN event, I think the production companies have a huge opportunity to make the experience that much better. And
mhm,
you kind of last year at Worlds for League of Legends, like it was a live event. There were people there, and they got to see like just amazing production that happened. So hats off to Riot there.
yeah. Riot and their ability to make anything from their cinematic
Yeah,
masterpiece trailers that sell
yeah,
you on League of Legends to the production value of their tournaments. They know what they're doing.
yeah, absolutely.
I've seen you mention, I know we've kind of been like almost warming up to this topic, I feel
Mhm.
like. But I've seen you mention in other interviews your kind of desire um to get esports in the Olympic Games, whether that be the Winter Olympics or the Summer Olympics. So I'd love to hear your opinion on why you feel that esports should be included as an Olympic sport, and why that might be an important milestone for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, it's a really good question and one that I think as we kind of talked before this, it's a little bit controversial. There are a lot of
Mhm.
people on both sides that feel uh, either it should be in the Olympics, and some people that feel the other way. But I think from a mainstream perspective, I don't think people realize the kind of mental and physical challenge that being an esports pro is. That's why teams have like sports psychologists and physical trainers to keep players playing at their best. Um, with that said, since day one, we've tried to get esports at the highest international stage, and we started on that journey at the Sea Games in 2019. We worked with, you know, um, 10 different federations across Southeast Asia. These are national esports federations, by the way. They're not, so it's like legit. Um, and
That's
got
awesome.
yeah, they held their qualifiers, fielded a national team, and it was the first time in history that esports was a medal event in international competition. So it's like there's the demand,
Mhm.
right? It's there. It's just a matter of time. And you know, on the other side of it, it's like people around the world, they might never have that chance to represent their country,
Yeah.
in international competition. They might never have the honor of lifting the gold medal. Um, so I think like what we're doing is like we have this Razer has this huge opportunity to make that a reality for a lot of people. Um, and as I mentioned, the National Esports Federation is popping up. It's not just in Southeast Asia. It's in. I just had a discussion with a representative from the Ukraine National Esports Federation, and so it's it's slowly getting there. I think you have the Global Esports Federation, um, and more of these organizations are just like popping up. They're
Hmm.
building the infrastructure for their countries, and they're networking to build a really big and very legitimate force in gaming. Um, and so, like, I think Sea Games was a huge milestone for esports, and I think what we're trying to do is with the Razer Invitationals that we've been putting on, trying to get more people recognizing the efforts that we're making to get esports onto that like pinnacle, that
Hmm.
top level. I think that's exactly what we're trying to do, and I hope a lot of people see that and see the value in that.
Yeah, I definitely see the value in that, especially when you mention, and I've never even thought about it from this perspective before, but people who aren't as, Olympian in their physical ability. Like, for
Mhm,
example, I would
mhm.
never be able to do like a professional javelin toss.
Yeah, I'll join
Um,
that club.
yeah,
Yeah.
but you see these people who, they have the know-how, they have the desire, and more importantly, they have the initiative and the excitement to get into gaming and to be the best that there is, and not just on the leaderboards and the local leaderboards, but
Mhm.
go to those tournaments, train day after day. So to give them an Olympic medal, I feel like would be a huge for the whole
Yeah,
industry, including that person.
yeah.
I noticed that we got some people here in chat. I just wanted to say hello to Bakir, Sam Betton, Lawson from YouTube and Facebook. Thanks for joining us. We got a question here from Sam Betton. And I think it kind of like rolls perfectly into what we were just talking about.
Mhm.
And that's are the players in esports kept separated from the fans or attendees? And if not, do you think that affects their focus during the game? So I think just to add a little bit onto this, I don't think he's specifically talking about COVID. I think he's mostly just talking about like I guess the atmosphere
Mhm.
of the arena and how that plays into being able to hear your fans or not being able to hear those fans.
Right. For the most part, the fans are and attendees are kept separate from the players because when in a game, it is so critical for sound and focus. That's why when you go to an esports tournament, you'll see them wear um, like really professional grade headsets. These each headset is like maybe like a couple $1,000s because of the technology for active noise canceling and things like that. So um, you know you can't distract a player, and
Mhm.
that's sort of part of it, right? And you get to see their gameplay on a big jumbotron or whatever. But if you want that intimate experience, that's when like a lot of the players will have like signings and meet and greets and stuff like after their matches. So there are opportunities to meet the players, shake their hands, take pictures with them, and talk to them. But obviously, during the game, during competition, it's all about that, and it's hyper focused.
So continuing off that like hyper focused, isolating them with the soundproof headphones and that kind of stuff. Um, in the tournaments and outside of the tournaments, how would you describe the experience for these esports players while they're training for these competitive things? Would you compare it to the same way that an Olympian who's maybe going for running or swimming would train, or do you think there's differences, or how would you kind of?
Um, I mean, I haven't managed like a pro player before, so I can't really get into the details. But I assume, and I've heard from other team managers that it's quite rigorous. They have
Mhm.
a very legit and rigorous training schedule, and it doesn't just involve like just playing the game, which they already do for dozens of hours. Um, they go through physical training. They go to they have gyms that they go to, and they have a nutritionist.
Mhm.
They have a sports psychologist to deal with, you know, mental challenges like tilt. How do they overcome that? How do they stay focused? Those kind of things are, not unlike what a traditional athlete would go through. The only thing is that a uh, an esports pro is, obviously sitting at their rig playing the game. Um, but I think it's really important for a lot of people to know that esports pros haven't had a lot of attention when it comes to um, physical wellness and
Mhm.
mental wellness. I think the conversation is starting. I'm starting to see a lot of articles about players, burning out at 20, 24, and that seems wrong to
Early.
me.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really early, and so I think that there needs to be a lot of education around mental and physical wellness for players. How they grip a mouse. How they sit, posture, ergonomics. Physical activity. I think all those kinds of things are really important. Even sleep.
Yeah.
You know, it's super super important for optimal performance. So, um, I would for all the people that are listening, I would just say stay tuned because we've got some stuff along the way for Razer regarding
Oh,
that
that's
aspect
awesome.
of esports. Yeah,
And I think that, it really does drive the point home that you can't be at your top physical game if your mind, body, and soul aren't
yeah,
all at their top physical game. So just
yeah,
because, you're not running a triathlon doesn't mean that you're not putting your body through the same mentally exhausting, which becomes physically exhausting, which is
yeah,
sleep and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
it makes a lot of sense.
hmm
Um, why you would want to train every single aspect. And I think that's why maybe people hold back on having esports in the Olympics because in their mind they're like, "Oh, well, it's not physically demanding like it is to do this and that and this." And
yeah,
it's like, "Well, it is physically demanding and in some retrospects maybe even more physically or
yeah,
mentally demanding
yeah,
than other tournaments because, esports tournaments go on for quite some time.
yeah.
It's not
Agreed.
just over and done with in 4 hours kind of thing.
Yeah, hmm
And that kind of, I see that we got one question here from Lawson. And I know we kind of briefly touched on it, but
hmm
how would you describe what game day looks like? Like for you're just setting up the tournament, it's go time, the tournament's going live. What does that day kind of look like? How does it feel amongst like the team at Razer or even the players themselves?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I don't have a really great answer for this because I haven't, like I said, managed a team like Team Razer, our brand. We sponsor and partner with a lot of esports pros, but we
Oh, okay.
don't actually work with the players directly in that way. But I think a game day would be kind of how you think it might go, right? When it comes to the teams and the players, it's all about all about like the mental preparation, right?
Hmm.
It's visualizing um, and sort of like in what it would be like in the moment, so they can almost like envision themselves making plays, uh, you know, going over strategy. They've already done their homework, before all of this happens, so they know exactly who they're going to be going against. They know their strengths and weaknesses, they know typically how an opponent might play. Like for League of Legends, they'll already think about their picks and bans like way before the game even begins, right? So I think a 80 to 90% of a tournament will happen actually before the tournament begins. It's all in their minds, and that's why like having a sports psychologist is so important because I think it was last year or the year before, um, I think Alliance had made a big like pick and ban like mistake in Dota 2 in the international, and that was just like, how does that happen, right?
Hmm.
It's just mistakes do happen, but like they have trained a whole year for this moment, and um, it just so happened that a mistake was made, and they lost the game because of it. So having that mental preparation before like game day is and during game day, it's so key, so key.
I think I've never really even thought about, and this is probably just because of my lack of sports background, but I
Mhm.
never even thought about how much research would have to go into not just, how to play the game, what are the best strategies, but also the amount of research and dedication it is to watching your components, learning how they play, restructuring how you play based on that. I never even really thought about,
Yeah.
how mentally draining that could all be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at like a traditional like sports coach and they're on the sidelines, they're drawing up plays like in football, or like, hey, there's that last like, 2-second play in basketball to shoot that winning, shot.
Mhm.
It's a lot like that, where um they strategy is like so important, and like getting everyone aligned on that um same page, and having whoever is the shot caller in the game, like, you know make that decision. Everyone needs to be aboard, right? Because if everyone is not on the same page and they're just like doing their own thing, disorganized and
Mhm.
not aligned, then that's just spells disaster. So a lot goes into esports and in gaming in general, and anyone who's played you know competitive strategy video games like knows. And it's not just like League of Legends too. It's it goes for StarCraft. All those actions that you have to make to find success and try to like whittle away your opponent. It's not easy, and so a lot of time and dedication needs to go into your craft, as I mentioned previously.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it is a craft, and it is a crazy talent, and that's why it needs to
Mhm,
be worked out so hard. I think this is a great point in time to kind of reintroduce you to anybody who's joining now. This is Next in Gaming, where we interview different personalities and opinion leaders within the gaming space. My guest today is Khang Thai. He is the senior global esports lead at Razer, has extensive experience in marketing consumer techs, and is well versed in developing compelling content that drives brand awareness and conversion. We have a about half of our questions left to get through, but of course, if you have any questions while you're following along, feel free to jump in the live chat, throw them in there, and we'll get them up on screen. So that kind of leads me perfectly into the next, I guess, section of
mhm,
questions.
mhm.
Um, and we had somebody in chat, Lawson here, who maybe saw my questions beforehand and knows them because he nailed this one. And he asked, for someone who's wanting to get into esports, who wants to be an esports player, do you think multi-streaming, streaming to multiple channels, really propelling their name out there as much as possible, would help in that at all to get scouters to notice them, or to even get replies to them asking to be sponsored on Twitter, as you're well familiar
Yeah,
with?
yeah. No, absolutely. I think it is vital to multi-stream. I think because every platform is different, has different users. There's a different audience, and so you're reaching different people in different potentially locales. Uh, you know, some platforms are really strong in different regions versus others. Like Facebook is huge in like Southeast Asia, but like maybe Twitch is huge in LATAM or
Mhm.
North America. So I think it's worth putting yourself out there in as many platforms as you can, um, or restreaming to all those different platforms, right? So, I think what it takes is like a lot of experimentation,
Mhm.
and finding which platforms really, you know, drive a lot of engagement from and traffic for you. So you could multi-stream, but then if let's say Facebook isn't performing for you, then you can dedicate more efforts into making your Twitch or your YouTube stream that much better.
And it kind of gets you into those, almost into those bubbles, as you said, because Facebook's
Mhm.
really popular in Southeast Asia. So if you're looking to join a team there, getting your name out there, or
Yeah,
even just getting some buzz around your name, so when you're applying, it's not like, who's this guy? It's like, oh, I saw that person on Facebook 3 weeks ago, or
yeah.
that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So given all that in mind, and kind of, I guess, not so much your goal, but your ambition, or maybe even your goal to get esports into the Olympic Games, and with all the stuff that that we can't disclose on stream, of what Razer is going and doing behind the scene. Where exactly do you see the esports industry heading next? What's next
Yeah,
in store for this?
yeah, that's a great question. I think what we've seen over the past like couple of years is this more collaborations happening, more non-endemic brands entering the space. um, you know you see like G2, they
Hmm.
just announced their partnership with Adidas, right? And like they had their jerseys and everything. You see Louis Vuitton creating the League of Legends like trophy case. I think we're going to see a lot more of that happening, and that's awesome because
Yeah,
esports is not just about the sport itself. It's like it's entertainment, it's content creation, it's all these things that are really growing the audience and very very quickly. There's also going to be more crossover, I think, with traditional sports and motorsports. You already see it with NASCAR, F1. Um, you know, I
yeah.
think there's just going to be um, these huge opportunities for the space to grow. You see NBA 2K League, even like NHL teams are having like esports teams. So I think like it's so awesome, and I'm like I said before, like I'm really really lucky to be in this space now, and seeing at really the ground floor like how
Yeah.
it's all happening, and seeing all these organizations and brands like wanting to enter the space. It's such a hot place to be.
I think it's really awesome. I didn't even know about the Louis Vuitton thing, so I'm definitely gonna be looking up that after this.
Yeah.
Um, but with NASCAR, I think it actually even adds more complexity to the and not even more complexity, but more variation in tracks.
Hmm.
Obviously,
Yeah.
with NASCAR, you're very limited to geographics
Hmm.
when you want to race,
Yeah.
versus we can rebuild an entire car and hook it up to like air pumps and stuff so that it shakes just like a normal car, throw
Yeah.
screens in it. Like we can basically, put you anywhere in the world and make you feel like you're really driving. So I feel like
Yeah.
that's an amazing thing to do.
Some of the rigs that we've seen, Razer sponsors Williams Esports over in Europe, and
Mhm.
their team is and facilities are amazing. And watching some of their drivers, like sometimes they'll stream and you can see them like turn their wheel and like have their foot on the pedal, and seeing how they actually drive around these virtual
Oh yeah.
tracks. It's incredible. You would think they were actually driving, and I think
Mhm.
if you could put them in a real car, they would perform very admirably as well.
And you also get more control over conditions. So if
Yes.
you're about to start a race and it starts raining, just turn off the rain physics and then
Yeah.
it's on.
Yeah.
So I'd love to give you a chance to talk directly with our audience now that we're kind of coming to the end of the show here.
Yeah.
To talk about maybe what you have coming up next, what Razer has coming up next, and where our audience can connect with you. And while you're doing that, if you have a link or you mention anything like that, I can always toss that up on screen for people to connect with you that way as well.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I think there are a couple things I'd like to talk about, and one of those things is, as some people may know, Razer has been putting on Razer Store Live events every month. We're announcing new products, collaborations, giveaways, and things like that. So a lot of amazing announcements happen every month, and I highly recommend people tune in and watch them. If you follow us on at Team Razor or at Razor on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, you can find out like when they happen. And every show is amazing. You get to see sort of the inside of like some of our stores in Las Vegas, in San Francisco, in Singapore, and we'll be doing those every month. So just a lot of fun. The other one that I'd like to talk about is Razor Invitational. Again, I had mentioned it previously, but to go a little bit more in depth, these tournaments are online events that we're putting on, inviting amateur players or even influencers to come play. Um, we have one coming up. I can't talk about where just yet, but stay tuned because it's going to be huge. It's going to be awesome, and I hope people will want to come and play and potentially win some really really great prizes. So really excited for it. Really excited to announce it when we do. So yeah, please stay tuned.
So there's the link at the bottom of the screen if you want to go check out that. It sounds like you should because you're not getting any of the details yet. So you need to follow along if you want the details. um, anyway, thanks so much for joining us on today's stream. I think it was a really awesome conversation about esports and Olympics and all that kind of stuff. I threw all the links that I heard you mention into chat. So if anybody's looking for those, just go and check there. If you're watching this stream afterwards, I'm going to go ahead and throw all those links that he mentioned in the description below. So thank you so much for being on today's show.
Thanks for having me.
It was great. I'm going to toggle you off from now, and then feel free to hang out backstage while I just quickly do an outro.
Sure.
All right. So that's the end of today's show. Thanks so much for joining us. We got to sit down with Khang Thai, talk about esports, the Olympics, how esports players train, and kind of the whole gambit, honestly. If you're looking to digest this later on, maybe you want to listen to a podcast on your drive to work, or I guess walk across the hallway to work since COVID. You can go and do that at anchor.com /next in gaming. I'm going to throw that up on the screen right now. That's where you can catch our podcast. It'll be up in about 2 hours. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us on today's stream. Have yourself a wonderful evening and a great stream.